There are places on this planet that remain untouched, vertical deserts of stone and ice where human life is a fleeting visitor. But what happens when, in one of these desolate landscapes, we find something that shouldn't exist? Something that defies logic and hints at a story mankind was never meant to discover. This is the documented account of Leo Anderson and Mia Williams, two experienced alpinists who, on a routine ascent, stumbled upon an anomaly so profound it would change their understanding of solitude, survival, and the secrets the Earth can hold. The date was Monday, October 14th. The time, 10:15 a.m. Leo Anderson, a geological surveyor by trade, and Mia Williams, a former search and rescue specialist, were traversing the formidable western face of the Argent Spire, a granite escarpment notorious for its technical difficulty. They had just completed the third pitch of their climb and were taking a brief respite on a precarious ledge, a flattened-out section no wider than a park bench, suspended 2,000 feet above the valley floor. Leo pressed his back to the rough limestone, monitoring his heart rate as sweat trickled from beneath his helmet. Ahead, Mia was already preparing the next belay point, but then she stopped. Her body went rigid. She looked back, not with the easy confidence of a fellow climber, but with an expression of profound disbelief. "Leo," she uttered, her voice thin against the wind. "Is that a window?" Leo initially dismissed it as a trick of the light, a geological anomaly, perhaps a patch of reflective quartz. But Mia's stare was fixed, unwavering. He shielded his eyes, following the line of her pointing finger. And then he saw it too. An unmistakable, geometric glint of manufactured glass catching the morning sun. It was impossible. Windows belong in houses. Houses belong on the ground. What was one doing embedded in a sheer granite cliff face in a location accessible only by rope and carabiner? Their professional caution warred with a primal, irresistible curiosity. They abandoned their planned route. The closer they climbed, the more the anomaly resolved into a coherent and deeply unsettling shape. A weathered tin roof was seamlessly integrated into the solid stone above a dark wooden door. It was a facade, a ghost of a home where no home could ever be. "Someone built this," Mia whispered, her voice a mixture of awe and apprehension. "Inside the mountain." The structure was clearly old, yet the lines of the wood and metal were too precise to be a natural formation. There was no path, no trail, not even the faintest sign of erosion suggesting a route. Only the sheer, unforgiving drop. The logistical questions were staggering. Who could have hauled these materials to such an altitude? And more importantly, why? They spotted the only possible access, a narrow, knife-edge ridge of rock that jutted out from the main cliff face, forming a natural but terrifying bridge to the structure's front door. The ledge was barely a foot wide. Below it, a 600-foot drop terminated in a scree field of jagged rocks. Mia tested it with her boot. It seemed stable. A short, tense discussion followed. To turn back now was to leave a question unanswered that would haunt them forever. They agreed. This was a discovery that demanded investigation.
Mia secured their safety line. "One at a time," she advised, her professional instincts kicking in. But Leo, feeling a strange premonition, shook his head. "We stay roped together." He clipped in, leaving 10 feet of line between them, and pushed off, hugging the cliffside. As they inched their way across the stone bridge, a peculiar phenomenon occurred. The ambient temperature plummeted. The air, warm just moments before, became biting and frigid, as if they had crossed an invisible thermocline. Then, a sound cut through the whistle of the wind, a sharp metallic clang that echoed from within the structure. It was the distinct sound of a metal latch being thrown, or a shutter slamming shut. They froze. Mia's breath hitched. They stared at the dark, empty squares of the windows, which stared back, revealing nothing. The sound was not the wind. It was deliberate, mechanical. "We've come this far," Mia said, her voice tight but resolute. "We have to know what's inside." Leo hesitated, his gaze drawn to the dizzying drop below, but the mystery was now a siren's call. He reached for Mia's hand, her grip steadying him. Together, they took the final step off the ledge and onto the small, solid platform before the cabin's wooden door. The door was made of a dense, dark wood, oddly smooth and free of rot, defying the decades of harsh weather it must have endured. Leo reached for the heavy iron handle. It was inexplicably warm to the touch. Mia pressed her ear against the wood, listening. Silence. A profound, absolute quiet that seemed to absorb the sound of the wind around them. The cabin was a pocket of stillness in a world of motion. To see inside, Leo flicked on his headlamp. The powerful beam cut into the darkness. Crouching to clear the low frame, they stepped inside. The first shock was immediate. The home-like facade was a lie. There was no living space, no furniture, no floorboards. The door opened directly into a narrow, man-made tunnel that sloped down, deeper into the heart of the mountain. The windows on either side of the door were nowhere to be seen from the inside. "The glass," Leo said, his voice echoing in the confined space. "It's backed by solid rock." It was a theatrical front, a stage set for an audience of no one. But where did the tunnel lead?
Before they could contemplate the question, they heard it again, the same bell-like clang, followed by a metallic bang. This time, it was closer, much closer. It seemed to emanate from the depths of the tunnel, from a faint point of light they could now see at the far end. Driven by a force they no longer controlled, they moved forward. The tunnel was approximately 60 feet long, the air thick with the smell of cold stone and damp earth. As they neared the end, a sudden, violent gust of wind howled outside. Behind them, a concussive boom reverberated through the tunnel. The heavy wooden door, caught by the gale, had slammed shut with incredible force. The sound of splintering wood and the groan of a tortured frame told them everything. They scrambled back, grabbing for the handle. It wouldn't budge. Leo threw his shoulder against it, but the door was wedged tight, driven into the frame at an angle. His headlamp beam revealed the edges were deeply impacted, splintered into the surrounding paneling. They were sealed in. The pressing wind outside was an accomplice, holding the door closed. Their connection to the outside world had been severed, trapped. There was no choice now but to go forward. They followed the tunnel to its end, emerging into a larger cavernous space. Here, at last, was a living area, carved directly from the mountain's stone heart. It resembled a hidden military bunker. Dust lay thick on a rough-hewn table, a few chairs, and several low wooden bunks. But the dust was not undisturbed. On the table sat a single plate with the desiccated remains of a meal. A cup held a dark, sticky residue, and in the center, a kerosene lantern was still burning, its flame dancing low, casting long, wavering shadows. This wasn't an ancient ruin. It was active. Pinned to the stone wall were faded photographs, climbers on mountain peaks. But a chill ran down their spines as they looked closer. In every photo, the faces of the subjects had been violently scratched out, rendered into featureless, angry ovals. All faces but one. A single clear portrait of a man in a blue hat remained untouched, staring out from a group of ghosts. "Is this him?" Mia wondered aloud. "The person who lives here?" The rage evident in the defaced photos was palpable. If this was the man they were now trapped with, they were in grave danger. The silence in the chamber became heavy, oppressive. Mia felt a disquieting sensation, the primal fear of being watched. Every shadow seemed to coalesce and shift at the edge of her vision.
Suddenly, a muffled footstep creaked from directly above them.
They both froze, eyes darting to the ceiling. It was solid stone. There was no second floor, no attic. The sound was impossible, as if someone was pacing within the very rock itself. Leo's headlamp beam scanned the ceiling and caught the outline of a square shape, a hidden hatch. Using the table for leverage, Leo reached the iron ring handle and pulled. With a loud groan, the hatch swung down, releasing a rush of stale, cold air and revealing a pitch-black void. "We're not going up there," Mia stated, her voice trembling. "If something is in here with us, it's better to face it than to let it corner us," Leo countered, his own fear masked by a grim determination. He hoisted himself into the darkness. A moment later, his head reappeared. "You're right not to want to be alone. Come on, it's safer together." She took his outstretched hand, and he pulled her up. The table wobbled precariously. She scrambled through the opening and found herself in a narrow, horizontal passage that stretched impossibly far into the mountain. Faintly, from the end of the passage, came the sound of dripping water. As they crept forward, the dripping grew into a steady roar. They reached a final wooden door. Standing together, they pulled it open. The sight that met their eyes was breathtaking. They were standing on a ledge in a colossal, hidden cavern behind a massive, thundering waterfall that poured from an opening in the cavern's ceiling. Light streamed through the cascading water, filling the grotto with a strange, ethereal glow. A deep, clear pond lay at the waterfall's base, and by the pond, a figure was standing, waving to them. They recognized him instantly. The man from the photograph. The man with the blue hat. Leo instinctively pulled Mia back, but a voice, calm and clear, cut through the roar of the water. "It's all right. You're safe." The man's posture was not threatening. He pointed to a set of crude but sturdy steps carved into the rock alongside the waterfall. Hesitantly, they descended. "My name is Liam," he said as they approached. His face was weathered, his eyes holding a depth that spoke of immense time and solitude. "I was a climber, like you." He explained that 7 years prior, he was part of a geological survey team. A sudden, violent rockfall during a storm severed their lines. His team, believing him dead or unreachable, was forced to retreat. He was left stranded, the sole survivor on the doorstep of the strange facade.
"The house front was already here when I found it," Liam continued, his voice raspy from disuse. "An old prospector's folly, I think, or maybe something else. I never found out." "The anger in the photos," he admitted, "was from those first few years. It was the rage of abandonment, the fury of a man left for dead. Rescue teams came within the first year," he confessed, looking at the waterfall. "I saw their helicopters. I refused to signal them. The world I came from, it felt more dangerous than this." He had found not peace, but a quiet resignation, a severance from a life he no longer trusted. "The front door?" Leo asked, the final piece of the puzzle. Liam nodded. "I sealed it from the inside years ago. I never used it. The wind must have finally jammed it for good. This is my only way in or out." He pointed to a spiral path winding up beside the waterfall, disappearing into the darkness above. "It leads to the forest on the mountain's plateau. It's how I get food. It's safe." Relief washed over Mia and Leo. They shared a meal with this ghost of the mountain, smoked fish and foraged greens. The warmth of the fire and Liam's calm presence transformed the threatening space into a sanctuary. Before they left, they made a promise. His secret would be safe with them. As they emerged from the hidden path into the fading light of dusk, the world felt both larger and more mysterious than before. They hadn't found a monster. They had found a man who had chosen to become a part of the mountain, a man who had built a kingdom in a world of his own. The origins of the impossible house in the cliff remain unknown, but its purpose had been redefined. It was no longer just a mystery. It was a tomb, a sanctuary, And now, a secret, held forever by the climbers who had breached its walls and the hermit who called it home.